Peace and love, everyone. It's your girl Karina, aka I of Karina. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I want to talk to you about the up and coming 2020 transit of Venus retrograde in Gemini. There's a few things that I want to say, and that 2020 has already kicked off to be one of the most memorable years of our generation. And while Venus, this little planet that it hasn't really been a major player, honestly, in everything that's happening in 2020, but could be the saving grace to everything that you need in order to find the pleasure that is deserved for you. Find the pleasure. Okay, so the planet Venus. The planet Venus is love, beauty, self-worth. Love, beauty, self-worth. Love, beauty, self-worth. When Venus is in Gemini, she is so youthful and young and innocent. And her words are what captivate and allure people to her. We're dealing with a Venus retrograde, which means that we're going to have to go internally into ourselves. So if you have Venus in any of the mutable signs like Sagittarius, Virgo, or Pisces, then this may be a lot more challenging for you. So if you're born with Venus natally in your chart already, then you will still be going through the same things that you always go through. But the energy is calling for you to uplift society, to help those around you grow through their own Venus retrograde transit, okay? Because you naturally understand this energy. Join my newsletter where you can get free music from me, as well as ongoing promotion and release of the new Venus RX or Venus Retrograde album. So Venus Retrograde is levels. The first level is that she is completely unsure of her own self-value and is constantly questioning it, constantly overcompensating for it, maybe by buying for other people and spending money to get love and appreciation back, doing things, manipulative things, even if they're not that awful, but just doing whatever she can to gain attention, love, and adoration, because she has to actively get it, because she does not know how to attract it. That's Venus retrograde. Now, Venus energy is purely attraction. And when we have to go out of ourselves and take action, that's actually activating Mars. So we kind of lost our sense of, we lost the distinction between the two superpowers. Mars is when you take action, and Venus is when you bring things into you, and you utilize both of these superpowers in your life, right? But with Venus retrograde, sometimes we don't know how to attract. We don't have an identity of ourselves that is attractive. And so that is the first level of Venus retrograde. Now, on a heightened level of Venus retrograde, this is somebody with a refined sense of self, that they have gained wisdom in understanding where they had no identity of self-value, and are constantly reassuring themselves of their self-value, which brings them into this beautiful place of healing their relationships, healing other people's relationships, healing their beauty, right? Their sense of beauty, their sense of feeling worthy, of having material things. And they also are naturally creatives. They become very refined and intentional with their their creations. They may even be a little bit more political in the sense of teaching and having a completely different perspective on the role of the feminine and the role of money, role of relationships and of beauty. So when we're dealing with Gemini energy, right, ruled by Mercury, we're dealing with the lower mind. Mercury compared to Jupiter. Jupiter is an energy that sees things on a wider scale. So this becomes a lot more optimistic and positive. Mercury sees things on a more minimal scale, like on a more up close scale. Mercury is dissecting things. So Mercury becomes very critical. It becomes very, focused on the details, where Jupiter energy is focused on the big picture. Okay, so Mercury's energy can often be a little bit, lean more towards the negative side. We're dealing with that part of us that is critical, that has a lot to say, that is really dissecting things. And when we combine this with Venus retrograde, if we, depending on the levels, we can either have a severely verbal attack towards our own self-worth. This is one way that this plays out, because the energy of the lower level of Venus retrograde has a lack of of that developed part of themselves, an underdeveloped sense of self-worth. And so we combine these, Mercury and Venus retrograde, and now this is a transit that has to do with overcoming a lot of harsh criticism. Now, you may be the type that criticizes yourself. I mean, we all do to a certain degree, and that alone can cripple you. Or you may just be experiencing this on the outer level, which means that maybe the people around you would be criticizing you. Major players of Gemini ruling players, right? When we talk about the people around you, this could be cousins, neighbors, the people who live like in your household or in your apartment building, the people who live in your neighborhood. These are like active players when it comes to the people around you, right? Also like siblings, cousins, and also this could be situation of gossip or internet craze, because this area, Gemini rules over communication. So it could be through some sort of internet communication, but like an email or text or social media posts, or it can also be like the phone, a text message, mail. That's what Gemini rules. So Gemini is a form of expression combined with self-worth. And so on a lot of levels of, especially when we're talking about being triggered, this is where we're going to get that. We're going to deal with this triggering of self-worth due from a message or from a verbal attack. And this could be very difficult for those who have a lot of Venus in their chart, or who have those mutable Venus placements. Like I said already, Sagittarius, Virgo, Pisces, they're the ones who are going to feel this the most. But what could also come from this is a higher sense of tapping into your own fountain of youth, because Gemini is a very youthful sign. It is one of the signs that trigger this idea of being young, innocent, and naive, and impressionable. And so when we are combining this with Venus retrograde, right, we can also play out this idea of tapping into your own sense of naivety and looking at the world and looking at yourself in wonder, as if you've never seen yourself before, right? And if you've ever thought about when you look at something that you have never seen before and wonder, you're just so much in awe of it. And what if you could actually manifest that with your own sense of beauty and your own sense of self-worth, that you're in awe of how different you are, but also just youthful, young, happy that you could be. And so the elevated sense of Venus retrograde in Gemini is finding your own sense of wonder